This episode of the Book of Very, Very Bad Things podcast has been brought to you by our sponsors at Sweet Cheetah Publicity. Sweet Cheetah is a PR collective that values people over profit. They put a different spin on public relations by working primarily with friends and using all profits to aid charitable organizations. With a roster that includes Jawbox, The New Amsterdams, Brainiac, Get Some, Funeral Date, Damian Dunn, and many more artists, record labels, and podcasts. Sweet Cheetah! That's a great PR cohort. You can find them on social media by simply searching Sweet Cheetah PR, and they'll be there. He's been Tim, I've been Peter, and Sweet Cheetah has been beautiful. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Book of Very, Very Bad Things podcast. I'm your host, Peter, and I am still here. And tonight it is my pleasure, my honor, my privilege to give to you Michael Popeye Vogelsang of Farside and of Calling Hours, his new project. Calling Hours have just released their new EP on Revelation Records entitled Say Less. You'll notice there's no video to this specific interview tonight. Michael and I are going to do another one. He just didn't feel like being on camera this particular night a few months back when we had this conversation. We were supposed to go out a week later, and I didn't get a chance to go because I got sick, and I feel bad about it because a bunch of our mutual friend group were supposed to do a nice hang, and I missed it because I'm a homebody schmuck. Anyway, this was a great convo. I really enjoyed Michael / Popeye. Very much great guy, massive talent, and obviously he's an icon in our community. Here's a little more of Curtain Call off of the new EP.
Just might be the best part. Yeah, save it all for me. The light, the craving, the instant saving. Save it all for me. 'Cause you just might be the best part of being me. The best part of being me.
Notice that incredible music behind Michael's voice. It comes directly from the members of the band Don't Sleep and the Very Americans, who are a very Pennsylvania hardcore band. This record would easily sit next to both Farside and Don't Sleep and all of Michael's former bands, including Ice. There's a definite lineage there that is being celebrated with this record while also doing something quite a bit different with their collective sounds. And it's just such a pleasure to sit and take this in, especially knowing Michael and, you know, these talented human beings that are getting together and making Pennsylvania a viable hardcore option again, is probably the only way I can put it. We are starting to come back on the map again after having fallen off after Cold World kind of stopped playing and, you know, Title Fight taking an indefinite hiatus. We're still swinging here. We still have great bands here, and this is a prime example of that. The Scranton area still lives, folks, and we cement it in this episode. Popeye is a Scrantonian, straight up. West Coast be damned. He's one of ours now, and we're not giving him back. If you like what you hear on this show, please rate, subscribe, tell your friends, share some stuff on some social media platforms, do all of that, and I'll be deeply in your debt. Without further ado, I give to you Michael Popeye Vogelsang on the book of Very, Very Bad Things podcast. Hello there.
Hello. Hey, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you, Michael?
I'm great, Pete. I thought I had my headphones plugged into the right place. Let me. No, we just picked up a foster cat like 2 minutes ago. It's a little chaotic. So I was like, "Arr!" So I apologize for not getting everything ready.
No worries at all. Take your time. If you got to set things up, you could take your time. Absolutely. I just put my 4-year-old to bed, so I have time.
Yeah, been that long.
Yeah. I haven't seen you in a few years now.
It's been a few, So I'm trying, but you're trying to scramble and trying to get it all together, and
especially when you have like rescue animals all over the house. I have 6 currently, so I completely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We have 5 dogs, 5 cats, all rescue.
Oh man, yeah. We're afraid to get dogs because we have 10 cats, so we're worried that's going to be a bit of a problem.
Yeah, I could see how that could go south pretty quickly.
Yeah, exactly. How do you get 5 cats and 5 dogs together though? That's crazy.
They just had to get thrown into the fire, and you know what I mean.
They just had to learn how to work together.
Yeah, work it out, or it's jailhouse rules in this house.
Sure.
All right.
Oh, blessed thee. Oh, happy day. Well, now, and now I can hear you better as well, because then there's the birds are chirping and the spring is in the air, and let's
the world's once again alive.
I know. If we're gonna do this, let's do it right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Phew.
So, are you harnessing your chi?
It's just the ridiculousness of life. It's just like, like you think like, oh, this is gonna be the simplest thing possible, and then no, here's 27 other things that are gonna happen like right now, and and there's nothing to complain about. You got a good life, but sometimes it's like, all I want to do is just this one thing, but I have to do these 27 other things before I can get to this one little thing.
Yeah, you can't just press play and go. That's too easy. That's
no, you can't. and I especially shouldn't sound like I'm complaining, because I don't have dogs in the house like you do, or a human child. So you must be running around like a crazy person all day.
Something, at 47 years of age, the thing that keeps me most youthful is my 4-year-old.
Really?
Yeah. Otherwise, my daughter's 22. I would just be the curmudgeonly, shitty old dad figure, but now I'm watching children's shows again, and dumbing down my verbiage and diction, and I've become somewhat more inarticulate and a lot more fun to be around.
Okay, you know what? I can understand that, because in a related sort of way, that's how. I mean, of course, you can't speak. Well, I mean, you try to, but you cannot speak to an animal as if they were a human being. Like, they're not going to really comprehend, and so you do the baby voice, and you're like, "Oh, who's the best girl in the world?" But it does kind of bring a little something out of you, and then you think, well, wait a minute, who is the best girl in the world? You are, and then you get kind of fired up about it. So yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. I think I do, at least.
No, you're getting it. I mean, sadly it kind of finds its way out of your system the older they get, and you become, a little more attenuated to the fact that this little person is going to love you no matter what. But in the beginning, you try really hard.
Sure. Yeah. 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 Not having kids of my own, I can literally only imagine, but I have been in the bleachers to watch other people go through this many times. So I'm not going to say that I have any kind of insight about it, but you're not the first person that's told me something like that. And so it's kind of interesting for me to just kind of absorb it and just reflect on it a little bit. And, no, it's great. It's wonderful that you had the guts to actually attempt to raise a child in the world, like an actual human being child. So kudos to you, man.
Appreciate that, man. It is an act of I hasten to call it heroism. It's certainly selfish.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, the world we're currently living in, bringing another person into this mess seems a little selfish, but we're all geared to that for the most part. You get married, you have kids. I mean, we got that drilled down our throats our whole lives.
True. Well, I will say that I've always maintained a very close relationship with my mother, and I will call her once in a while and just say, "Hey, Mom, I just want to apologize for everything." And and the funny thing is, she, without blinking an eye, she'll say, "Thanks, I accept your apology." And then we're just gonna. She's like, "Yeah, you did, but we're cool."
She doesn't even mince words. Like, no, you were fine. You were great.
Not at all.
Running around in hardcore bands when you're a teenager and stuff, that didn't make me want to say the rosary 27 times a day.
God,
or anything,
yeah.
But
No, she hated it. She never understood it. But but then eventually she became my one of my biggest fans. I don't think she could name a single song that I've ever written or a lyric that I've ever written, but she always wants to know what I'm doing. And I think once you get to that point where you can demonstrate that I am in fact a responsible adult and not a burden on society, then it kind of becomes okay. But it takes a while, like hardcore was not that I'm that much older than you, but if you think about it, punk rock and hardcore are, compared to many other genres of music, is still kind of, it's young. Like, it hasn't been around for that long.
No.
So like in the early to mid 80s, when I was a teenager, and you had these weird bands, and like it was punk, like hardcore like barely even existed then. Straight edge and posiecore barely existed, so it was really just punk, and everybody just looked like you crawled out of a gutter at that point. So I could understand why parents wouldn't necessarily be too keen on your look or the kind of stuff that you were into. But then once it started to transition into hardcore, I think it still took a while for parents, or at least me and my friends, or I should say my friends and me, when we were kind of getting into the more clean cut kind of stuff, it still didn't really make sense to a lot of people because the music was even crazier. So that was the thing, like, because you look like you could practically pass for Mormons, but then the music you were listening to was like shredding your eardrums. So, but like
that thing in the 80s, though, like the late 80s, when my mom would be watching Donahue, right? And hardcore is on Donahue in the late 80s. And like I'm meeting Harry.
I remember that episode.
Like Harry and I are 13 years old. Okay. And I'm getting ready to go and meet him 3 miles from where I live to go to a hardcore show. And my mom's like, "Oh, you're not going." Well, Mom, Harry's going to be there. Well, I don't care who's going to be there. this is happening. These kids are beating each other up, but mom, they don't do drugs. Yeah, right. They don't do drugs. They beat the shit out of each other. Look at this.
Wait, so let me get this straight. You were dumb enough to tell your mom that you were actually going to a show? Because the rest of us lied.
I was in a band though. Like there was no getting away with it. I'm sneaking a bass out of the house. Like there's no like.
You could still lie about that. You lie.
I never knew how to lie. I don't know how to lie now. My wife makes fun of me for it. I'm terrible at it. I'm such a Catholic.
Okay, that's a good one. All right. I mean that was it. I admit I noticed that it's different now because now that people from our generation have kids that are old enough to have been going to shows for a long time, and then I hear these from my friends who have kids, and they're like, "Yeah, I took my daughter to her first punk show." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like you had to lie. You had to say, oh, no, I'm just going over to my bro's house. We're just going to hang out, maybe go to Denny's or something, drink some coffee." And then you would, go into the seediest neighborhood and go to the seediest shows and stuff. So it trips me out and I think it's wonderful that in a way it has become so acceptable as part of like a family structure of sorts, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's that these kids are making fun of us because we're now the old guys, and it's just like, whatever, Dad.
Yeah, they call us boomers now.
Yeah, God.
Damien Moyal from As Friends Rust and I just talked about this, about how hardcore, it's always been youth culture, right? But who's to say that you can't be a great band in your 30s, 40s, and 50s? We don't know because there aren't that many examples of it yet. But who's to say that's not the case, too? It's kind of tough to call.
Yeah, I think your best bet is to hope to, if you're going to try to do a band when you're in your 30s and 40s and 50s, try to find an audience that's the same age as you, because you're probably not gonna you're not gonna rope in like 15-year-olds who are like, "Hey man, check out this new sound." No, it's not a new sound, bro.
But in the same token, who's got a new sound at this point? That's
right. That's a good point.
We're all still ripping off, Chuck Berry and the Bad Brains, and there's so few touchstones for us to glean any sort of sound from, any kind of vitality from.
Yeah,
we're all ripping each other off. It's just how we arrange the chords differently, and going back to like,
I'm gonna quote. Hold on, I'm gonna quote you on that.
Okay,
we're all ripping each other off. That is
sure.
Truer words have never been spoken. Yeah, yeah. Because after a while, it's like, I don't know what to write about anymore. I can't think of any more riffs. No, good point.
Yeah, but you can still just take 3 chords, 2 chords, and throw something together, and as long as you mean it, it's still relevant.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
True.
Please don't do that again, because I won't know where to begin. There's a struggle every weekend, and when the lights are up, the light is gone. Ooh, there's a kerfuffle in the bed.
And that's kind of what really set it all apart. Sure, in the beginning, you still had more of a hardcore background with the music, but you weren't straight yelling. You know what I mean? There was melodicism involved. So once that kind of comes into the picture, the landscape really changes, I think, on the West Coast. I mean, I wasn't there. I was on the East Coast. We had Lifetime for that. But, there was that magical period where you could be talented and still be in a hardcore band. Where did that change come for you when you decided, okay, now I'm just going to concentrate on not just being angry, but, really singing?
I was really only in 2 bands before Farside started. I was in a a band called Bottom Line.
Mm-hmm.
Just some friends of mine in high school, and we never played a show. And then I was in a band called Borderline with Dennis Remsing on drums, who did Conversion Records, and that was like the first like kind of real band that I did, where we did a 7-inch and we actually played a few shows. And then Farside came along. I wouldn't say that there was any kind of like conscious effort. I mean, I was 19 years old, man. I mean, how many thoughts do you think I was actually having going through my brain? I had just graduated high school. I was working at a gas station, stumbling my way through my first year of college. I wasn't thinking big by any means. So I couldn't say that I was, like had these wild dreams. In fact, I had to actually like literally beg Rob Hayworth, the founding guitar player for Farside, to let me try out to be the singer. He and I were friends. We went to high school together, and he lived close by the gas station where I worked, and so he would come in, and we were friends anyway. And he came by one day and said, "Hey, I'm doing this new band. We're kind of doing this more melodic kind of thing." And I was like, "Oh, cool." Mm-hmm. He said, "Yeah, we don't have a singer." And I just said, "Hey, I can sing." I had never sang for a band before. And I said, "Yeah, can I try out? I'd love to." I just wanted to do something. I just wanted to do anything. And he looked at me with these glaring eyes and said, "You can't sing, Popeye." And I said, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure." I said, "Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure I can't." And my experience of singing was, singing along to the radio in the car, or doing, my brother and sister and I on road trips in the back seat of the station wagon, singing Barbara Ann and working out the harmonies. And so I literally had to like beg him, like, "Please, dude, I promise you I know how to sing. Like, if you give me a practice tape, I can write some lyrics and do some stuff." And then he came back a couple days later with a practice tape, and when he handed it to me, he looked at me with this really judgmental look, and once again said, "Can you really sing, Popeye?" And I said, "Yeah, dude, I swear I can try. I can sing." So, and then we went to practice, and we, jammed it out for a little while, and then it just kind of went from there. But I can honestly tell you that there was no bigger thought in my head other than, I just want to be in a band. Like, I just wanted to be in bands at that point. Whether they were good or not, whether it was going to go anywhere or not. And I didn't even have dreams of, ever calling myself a musician per se. I just wanted to play in bands. That was it. I just wanted to play. I just wanted to be part of what everybody else was doing. That was it.
And, it just so happened you're in a scene where we all kind of get the opportunity in some way, shape, or form to contribute to it. Be it a band, be it, a fanzine, any of that. Like, that was kind of the whole point of the rarefied group that we all find ourselves in this thing. It's not homogenous. Everybody has their own little thing that they contribute.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's what makes it more than just a scene. That's what makes it a community.
Yeah.
Or at least that's how I've always felt about it. Man, and I'm sure you can say the same thing. Like the innumerable amount of friends that you've made over the years, just because of all of this. Mm-hmm. Like you, that's way more valuable than any amount of money that you could make, or the amount of people that could show up to a show. Like, you could get 10 people at a show, or you could get 1,000 people at a show. But those connections that you make with people, that always made it feel to me like it was something, more than just writing songs or booking shows. Like, everybody had a part in it. Just like you said, you did zines, or somebody was dumb enough to book a show, or you know, or you know, make T-shirts for somebody, or make stickers, or patches, or whatever. Like it's all one big thing, you know.
That's what kind of blew my mind too. Like, you know, Joey Solomini is the drummer of the band that I don't even know if we're still even in a band, because we don't do anything anymore because of COVID and all that.
Joey.
Yeah, Joey.
God, I love Joey.
He's great.
He's amazing.
But I'm over at his house, and then you just come walking in. I'm like, Jesus Christ, that's Popeye from Farside. What the fuck is he doing in Pennsylvania? Scranton, Pennsylvania. What is he doing here?
Well, I mean, and my wife and I were like that day when we went over there to that party. That morning we were like rolling up like vegan spring rolls, because we were like, yeah, let's make sure that we bring something nice to the party, because because Joey and Jill are they're nice people, and you know, Harry and Robin are going to be there and all that, and yeah, you know, we just, you know, I think that's another thing that's great about the hardcore community, is that there aren't supposed to be rock stars. Like you're all like on equal footing, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
Yeah, and that was always something that I always loved about it. Admittedly, I get a little shy when, I mean, I have a sense of pride, but at the same time, I get shy when people are like, "Oh, you're that." It's like, hey, Dick, what's with these spring rolls? You know, I would prefer to have that conversation. It's like, well, you know, we were trying to put in some pea shoots and they didn't really work out, you know.
Instead, you get me with the baby in my arms going, "It's you."
But I remember that moment as well, and it was, you know, of course I remember that.
But like, you know, it's great to me that you never kind of let go of the music thing really either. You know, be it doing the solo thing, and now you have calling hours, right?
Yeah.
So that's the dudes from Don't Sleep and Very Americans, right?
Yes. Also, the commercials. Yeah, those guys have got some serious Harrisburg roots for sure, as far as music is concerned.
Oh yeah. It struck me that they, just like you, are these consummate musicians. You know, they're constantly doing something. Their fingers are still always in the mix of making something, which I find admirable, because that's what I try to do. I don't know how well I do it sometimes, but
I'm with you, man.
I'm still in the mix. You know what I mean? But how did that kind of all fall together for you? I mean, of course you showed up in PA, so that's like half the battle.
Yeah. Well, as you said, they are consummate musicians. They have known each other forever, and they have all been playing together for so long in many different iterations and different bands and different projects. The commercials were doing a reunion show. This is about a year and a half ago. And Jeremy Weiss, who's a promoter in Lancaster, was putting the show together, and he and I are old friends. So apparently somehow the word got out that, oh, Popeye lives in Pennsylvania now. Do you think he'd be interested in coming out and playing a solo show with us? And Jeremy said, yeah, I'll reach out to him and see what's up. And then that turned into, do you think he would be interested in playing a few full band Farside songs with us? And I have a hard time saying no. So I was like, that sounds like a terrible idea. Let's do it. I've never met you guys before. I am not familiar with your work at all, but let's do it, because why the heck not? And so, yeah, so I went to the show and we ran through the sound check. I wanted to take a nap afterwards because it was exhausting, because I hadn't played Farside songs with a full band in God knows how long. But then we played and it was awesome. We were hanging out afterwards, and we were just kind of chatting, and I was talking to Tom, the guitar player, and I was just asking him, like, so what's Don't Sleep up to? And he said, well, not much right now, but we still get together and we still write songs, and we just like to play together. We got a bunch of songs that wouldn't really work for Don't Sleep, but, you know, we don't have a singer. And possibly it's probably the best and worst decision I ever made in my life. I raised my hand and I said, can I get a tryout? Tom said, yeah, we'll send you some demos. And then I went home thinking, what the hell did I just commit to? And then they started sending me demos, and the songs were great. I was super into them. Brian McTurnan, who had worked with them on the Don't Sleep record and had stayed in touch with them. Brian and I are very old, dear friends, and one of them reached out to him and said, hey, we're just to let you know, we're doing this thing, and apparently Popeye is going to sing for us. And Brian, so I was told, Brian immediately said, book a studio and let's start working on this like now. And so, you know, then I of course waited until the last minute to start scribbling out lyrics and writing vocal lines. And then we spent a few days in Harrisburg at Rock Mill Studios, and we banged out a few songs, and then it just kind of went from there. And then we did a couple more demo sessions, and then we sent it over to Revelation Records, and they said they were into it. And so then we did the quote unquote real recording, and now we have a record coming out on Revelation sometime this fall, and we still can't really get our heads around it. like we're going to be on Revelation Records, as if I hadn't already done a bunch of stuff on Revelation Records, but I'm still so much in love with Revelation Records, and Jordan is still one of my closest friends that it's like I'll be like doing the most like I'll be scooping out a litter box, and I'm like, holy crap, man, you got a record coming out on Rev. The fuck?
There's and this is something that I think people who don't understand about the whole hardcore scene, having that star with the R in it on your record,
man,
it is so important. That when Civ put out their album on Lava Atlantic, they made sure the Revelation star was still on the back of the record.
Oh yeah,
they made sure of it, because that's a badge of honor, man. That's something that not everybody gets to say they were on Rev. You know, I know. I promise it has never been lost on me. Like, growing up, and especially before Revelation moved out to the West Coast, it was like you were just like desperately, anxiously awaiting for the next thing that had the R with the star that would show up at your local punk rock record store. Mm-hmm. And you know, there would almost be like a fist fight to see who was gonna come up with the allowance money to see who could buy this record. And you knew nothing about the band, but if it had that thing, because they had a reputation, and over the years, having the pleasure to get to know Jordan as a very close friend, knowing what a great guy he is, it made it all the more prideful for me to be able to work with a guy that was, you know, he was always honest and upfront and understated, but at the same time, always stuck to his guns about everything. And it was impossible to not, as a hardcore kid, it was impossible to not develop a kinship with that and feel like, as we were talking about earlier, feel like you were part of something and part of a community and part of something that was kind of raising its middle finger to the music industry in a way and doing your own thing. You know? Because you didn't get that with like Victory Records. Victory was, they were a mini corporate machine where, you know, somebody like, you know, Jordan or even New Age Records when they were still around. Well, they're around again now, but
Yeah.
you know, like Conversion Records, all of those labels, that meant a little something else.
Yeah, definitely. There was an idealism to it for sure. And, you know, and I can't speak to other labels that maybe wanted to you know, work out deals with other distribution companies, but at the same time, and maybe this is, as we spoke about earlier, maybe it is selfish, but and maybe it's a sin, but I felt that sense of pride being involved with something that tried to keep it as grassroots as possible. You know, not overcharging for things and trying to keep the costs as low as possible, and yeah, and just maybe, you know, putting like maybe in a way putting the tip of one of your pinkies as a fingerprint on something bigger, but at least you could say, yeah, I was kind of involved in that a little bit.
I think you're being modest though, because in all honesty, going back to, you know, the early 90s when Rochambeau came out, that was easily in the top 5 most important records of that era of my life.
Oh, wow.
Because it was, you were actually writing lyrics that weren't just, this is what your lifestyle should be. I don't do this, I don't do that, neither should you. Like, it wasn't really about that. To me, it had more in common with Bruce Springsteen or a Bob Dylan, because there were stories that had an emotional impact that weren't didactic or heavy-handed. It was really just, you know, someone screaming into the ether and hoping they get an echo in return. That's the way I processed it, but I overanalyze everything.
As do I.
You know,
so how much time do you got? You said you already put your kid to bed. So
yeah, he's out, so I'm ready.
All right, good. Well, I will. Here's the thing. I wished that I could have written those songs that you were describing, like, but I tried a few times and I realized that I just wasn't very good at it. I just wasn't very good at it. You know, like, oh my God, like I wanted to be Kevin Seconds and Milo Ackerman at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I was lousy at trying to be either one of them. And especially with the youth crew stuff, like I could never find a way to, like, we all had the same thoughts, like we all had the same ideas, and I couldn't figure out an interesting way to convey that, hey man, racism is wrong. Mm-hmm. All right. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I just started to, and I don't even know if it was really a conscious effort. I just said, okay, you know what? Go to Denny's, get a cup of coffee, get a fresh pack of cigarettes, because you could smoke inside at that time.
Yes, you could.
So for like hours on end, and I would just take out a journal and I would just start scribbling things down. It was like journaling. That, you know, that's kind of what it was. Just writing down what's going on. It was usually, you know, having a crush on a girl, or, you know, feeling like you weren't as good as you could be, or anything. Just write it down and put it out there, and then you show up to band practice hoping to God that you're not going to get laughed at. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so I guess it did become more introspective lyrically, but I can assure you I was not trying to reinvent the wheel by any means. I was
No.
just trying to. I just wanted to show up to practice with something.
But
That
the
was
way
it.
it came off to me is like, you're dealing with topics of like feeling invisible and, not having any sort of, presence in life as far as these women that, you have a crush on and they don't see you, and you're trying to, find your way in an adult world when you're not quite an adult yet. And these themes recur throughout that record. And I think that's why it resonated so much with me, because that's where I was at that time.
Wow. I'm glad it resonated with you so well. That means a lot that it mattered.
Oh, I still have my Farside ball cap from back then. That is not. It's not the color that it was when I bought it. I can assure you of that.
Was it a black one or a maroon one?
It was a black one.
Oh, okay. What color is it now?
It's almost like an orange burgundy.
Okay. A little sun bleaching.
A little sun bleaching. A little bit of my body's horrible pH, I guess. Maybe.
And that's the one with the embroidered logo on the top?
With the embroidered logo.
Wow. Yeah. We didn't sell too many of those. I remember Rev was like, hey, let's start doing embroidery. And then they started doing it and then realized, hey, this is really expensive. No one's buying it. All right. And it just, so there, yeah, you didn't see too, well, I mean, I didn't want to think that, why is nobody buying Farside hats? It was because like, well, it costs like $17 to buy a freaking baseball cap. Like back in, 93, like no one's going to spend that much money when, you didn't have to.
Yeah, the only reason I did is because I had a job back then. That's it. That's the only reason I had it.
Hey, Pete, I'm stoked that you still have it. That makes me so happy that you still have it. It's probably disgusting, and
oh yeah.
If you ever put that on your head, you don't know what's going to happen. You'll probably go into an LSD trip or something because of all the sweat and garbage.
And narcotics that were in my system back then.
That's probably why it really changed color, right?
Yeah, I should smoke it and see what happens. What do you think?
Set it up, man. Make a bonfire out of it.
I might.
I mean, you can't sell that to anybody. Who's going to buy that?
You'd be surprised.
It's disgusting.
You'd be surprised.
Come on.
You'd be surprised.
Hey, here's a filthy hat that probably has like parasites and stuff.
I had dreadlocks when I first bought it, so there's definitely something crawling inside.
Oh God!
There you go. I have all of this shit. I don't throw this stuff away. It's terrible. I have my wife calls me a hoarder, but if you were to look behind me, there's over 5,000 records behind me right now that prove that I've got mental problems.
Well, our policy is if you have room for it, you can keep it. Mm-hmm. I still have every single shirt that I ever bought at a show or a swap meet or a record store, but they are very neatly organized in Rubbermaid bins in the storage area.
Okay.
So that way no one's ever going to accuse me of anything. I'm never going to wear any of them again because, in the 90s you wore like, yeah. Do you have a triple XL?
Oh, yep.
Because I weigh $150. Yeah. But come on, But it's like I can't get rid of this shirt. Like no way. Like I can't. It's like having a photo album.
Mm-hmm. Like all my flyers. I have every flyer from every show I went to between 1987 and 1996. I got them all.
Wow. How do you store those?
In a photo album.
Wow, that takes a lot of dedication.
That takes a lot of boredom. I grew up in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania, man. I had hardcore shows and drugs. That's what I had going for me. So,
and apparently a lot of downtime.
And a lot of downtime. So if you're smoking weed at 2:00 in the morning, well, what do I do now?
What else are you gonna do?
I'm gonna take all my flyers. I'm gonna put them in chronology, and dude, that's some issues. I have every sticker of every band like that I went to see back then too. Like, why? Why?
Yeah. Once in a while I'll go, yeah, I get it. Like I have a hard time getting rid of that kind of stuff too, because it's not just stuff, like it's stuff that you were connected to. It's stuff that involves an experience that you had with a certain band, or a show that you went to, or a record you listened to. I just recently went through an old shoebox. Full disclosure, I came across a 7-second sticker that is probably 30 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And my first thought was, oh, dude, wow, I remember when you got this. What are you going to do with it? And then you can't think of like the most awesome place to put this 7-second sticker. So then you think, I'm just going to put it back in the box, and maybe like one day it'll come to me and I'll have an idea, which will not happen.
No,
but,
you're going to open the box in 20 years and go, I remember this sticker.
I remember this 5 seconds. Oh, they were a real hoot. What's your name again? Yeah, that'll happen.
Run me, motherfucker.
But yeah, but that'll be a good day when I do it. Like it's always, the thing is when you go through old shoe boxes and you find stuff that you forgot you had, the flood of memories just comes back, and it reminds you of what an awesome experience that you had being part of the scene and being a rebel, being an outcast, being a freak. And then eventually it reminds you that you're doing okay, and that you got through it, and that ultimately you found your place in the world. And then you're going to put it back in the box, and then you're going to go do something else. And then when you're 90, that's like, oh, who's this 3-second spare? But I look forward to those days.
If I see them, I'll definitely appreciate it, I'm sure. But you're lucky though. You're married to someone who gets that. Who's from that ilk, is from that scene. My wife has no fucking clue. She does. It doesn't.
I will say sometimes.
But she, she knows the bands. She's from that, scene. It's not like,
Actually, she. Not really. No. No. When we met because of John Bunch's death.
Oh, okay.
Because they had been good friends, very good friends, since high school. Since along with she had been friends with John and Chris and Rodney before Reason to Believe was even a band. So long before Sensefield was even a band, they were just friends. And so she got involved in that scene, and that's the reason why I moved out to Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. When they had the tribute show for John Bunch in Philadelphia, the Sensefield guys actually introduced us, and then it turned into a long distance relationship, and that's what led me to eventually move out to here to be with her. But we've had this conversation so many times I didn't think I would be bragging, but she would bring up Sensefield, and I'd say, yeah, we Farside and Sensefield played a lot of shows together, and she would say, are you sure? Because I went to every Sensefield show. I don't remember you guys ever playing ever. Yeah, we were friends. We were on the same record label for a while. We played a lot of shows together. Are you sure you played shows with? Yeah, I was there. Like I was in a band that played shows with Sensefield. Yeah, we were there. Huh. Well, I mean, I heard of you guys, but I don't remember ever seeing you play. And then like 3 days later, are you sure you ever played a show with Sensefield? Yes, I can assure you. I promise you. Yeah. So anyway, I'm just making a joke at my wife's expense because she's dealing with the cat that we just that we're fostering right now. She probably can't hear me anyway. For the most part, yeah, like we're kind of for the most part, we're involved in the same community, and we had a lot of mutual friends, and that I would say that would definitely help. So tell me about your wife having no concept.
No, well, she just doesn't have any context for it because she grew up. She was born here, but she moved to the Dominican Republic when she was very small. And there's certainly not much of a hardcore scene going on in Santo Domingo.
I met your wife the same time that you and I met, but we didn't spend a whole lot of time together.
Yeah, but she, she knows about this stuff because of me. I mean, she knew the Clash. I think the strangest in her mind that she got was probably Guns N' Roses. You know what I mean? It's just not really. It wasn't really her thing. Now, she's an appreciator, certainly.
Yeah.
But my collection of these things and the constant, dredging up of these articles of clothing. And, babe, look at this! I got this when I was 12. Yeah, throw it the fuck away. Like,
do you have a spot for that?
Did your grandmother buy it for you or something? No, get rid of it. Let it go.
I didn't realize there was a quad XL size T-shirt. Huh.
Why is that down to your knees right now? I was taller then.
Well, but I mean, at the same time, I mean, does it really matter? I mean, if you find a connection and you can work with somebody, then
yeah, that's not the point. It's just her walking past my vast pile of shit and shaking her head and walking away in disgust.
Yeah, well, don't worry. I get the same from my wife, who is allegedly part of this scene too. She's like, "Why do you have this?" I'm like, what? No, sweetie, that is a Les Paul. Never mind. I'll put it somewhere else.
Yeah. Hopefully, you never see it again.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you're at this point in the game, coming out with a record on Rev again, and it's coming out on vinyl, I'm guessing, and all of this is happening. Is that going to spark a whole new kind of like need in your soul to have like every, I got to have this on every color because I'm on it, and or less sentimental about the things that you do? I find that that's normally the case with even myself. Anything I did, I don't really care if I own it.
Well, I've personally never been much of I've never been any kind of a collector.
Mm-hmm.
I have records, and another thing, like my T-shirts, I don't think I could ever get rid of them any more than I could get rid of any piece of musical equipment that I've ever played on. Not that I own a lot. But I recognize that there are people who are really, really into that kind of stuff. I have to admit that I know very little about it, and I don't know what's valuable and what's not valuable. I mean, I have a Sylvania, one of those Sylvania turntables, like one of those portable turntables.
Mm-hmm.
That has like a USB port. And once in a while, I'll put on a record and, light a fire in the fireplace and pour myself a libation and put on a robe and an ascot and sit there and enjoy it. But otherwise, I have to admit, I appreciate vinyl, but I'm not a vinyl collector by any means. So it's difficult for me to speak to it. So I don't know what the plan is as far as that stuff is concerned. I think we're trying to be a little bit conservative about it because this upcoming release is going to be the first one that we've done as a band. And knowing Revelation, they're not going to say like, let's press 10,000 copies of this record. That's not going to happen either. So I will say there are smarter people in the room than me who will make that decision, and I can get back to you on that if you're interested.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm just going to buy it, obviously, but I don't worry about worth. It's just a matter of like, if this was something that I enjoyed, I usually buy it at least in duplicate. It's a thing.
Oh wow,
Like one gets put away and not played, one gets played. I'm not one of these.
really?
Yeah, I'm not one of these collectors that buys things to sell them. That's not my thing. I buy it because I love it, but then I have one that I play, and I have one that I kind of,
That you can wear out a little bit.
yeah.
You can
One,
brutalize it a little bit. You can enjoy the scratches of the needle on the record.
yeah. Whereas the other one is
It's never to be touched.
it's the
It
document.
shall not be touched.
Hermetically sealed in a mason jar
Mhm.
underneath the porch. But,
Yeah, I've known guys like you.
yeah.
No, but I get it. I get it. I totally understand. There's a sense of preservation, history. I totally understand that. It's just I don't have that in my brain. I have a. This is probably going to give you a heart attack, but I have a copy of Agnostic Front, Victim in Pain, first pressing on Rat Trap Records.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of sitting there. It's not hermetically sealed. I know. Yeah.
Does Harry know about this?
I'm afraid to tell him because he might break into the house one night and try to lift it from me.
Well, when he found out I had a Judge Chungking vinyl, he was like,
No way.
He was like,
Wait,
number one,
wait.
I don't.
You have a Chung King can suck it?
Yes.
Wait, is it the 10-inch?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's right behind me.
How did you
I have
get
it on
that?
the shelf, right?
And I was just saying that I'm not really into vinyl, but I know what you're talking about. Like that's the stuff that legends are made of.
That's
wow.
That's holy grail shit. That is the highest selling record on Discogs to this day. And I
When
would
I
never
get when I get your son's college fund taken care of.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. That and my Cough Cool 7-inch Misfits Cough Cool. That's a first pressing, but that'd be the first one to go. Actually, the Misfits record I'd sell first. But
help me out with something. So I was at my mom's about a year ago, and I was going through some old boxes, and I found a Chain of Strength 7-inch.
Mm-hmm.
Might be first pressing. It was kind of warped, and so it's been sitting on my dresser for the last year, like under some books, so I can try to flatten it out.
Mm-hmm.
Just off the top of your head, like, what do you think that would go for?
I bet you. I have a machine that'll flatten that out, by the way, and it won't warp it. But you could probably sell that for about maybe like $120.
No, I'll just keep it then.
If it's first pressing, it's about 120, depending on who you run into. You know what I mean? There are certain people that will spare no expense. I sold a Dead Kennedys T-shirt for $612 on eBay.
I get it. Yeah,
it was a hand screened Frankenchrist T-shirt that I got off of my cousin, who just gave it to me when I was a kid, and I sold it for a ton of money. But
wow,
it's all, you could put that up on eBay. Maybe you get $1,000. You know what I mean? It all depends on who you run across.
Yeah, gotcha. No,
but there's
just
one thing.
Curious.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll look into it for you, and if I find
there's no need. I mean, I don't have kids that I have to send to college. I'm just trying to rescue cats.
Well, yeah, but think about how many cats you could rescue if you had a cool grand laying around. You know,
that's true. But $120, that's like 3 days of crap food. That's not going to do much.
Right. But there's one thing I got to ask you, because I ask everybody this, because it's the only pre-prepared question I ever have for any episode, and I ask everybody it, so I'll ask you, and it sounds trite, but it's what I ask. What is it that terrifies you on an existential level?
Playing music.
Playing music terrifies you existentially.
Yep.
Hence why you do it then.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I admit I have my issues with performance anxiety. Every time I'm about to go out there and do something, and I don't want to sound, I don't want to, I don't want to act like I don't want to put off any kind of woe is me kind of thing, but yeah, it scares the piss out of me, man. I'm hoping to God that the show gets canceled. Because I don't want to do it. But that's why I do it, because I have to get myself out of my. I think it's healthy to get yourself out of your comfort zone, and I do my best to use my my nervousness and my anxieties and the butterflies in my chest to do well. And the thing is, once I committed to something, I'm in there, and after the first 30 seconds of the first song, I'm great. But the funny thing is, I can't remember that. So every time something's coming up, like a recording session or a show or even rehearsal, I'm kind of freaking out a little bit. So yeah, on any kind of level, that is my biggest fear.
Wow.
Yeah, but I think I think it can. I think when you do your best to face those fears, it can bring the best out of you, or at least I hope so. I haven't been kicked out of this band yet, so I think that's a good. I think that's a good sign.
To me, that's it's amazing to me to hear. I mean, I obviously get performance anxiety too when I'm going to play music in a live setting, but someone that I've been listening to for most of my life to say that, of course it's going to shock me a little bit, because you would think, okay, this guy, he's got some kind of confidence going for him. He has all these records out. He's been in all these bands. I think that goes for a lot of musicians.
And I think it, and I think it should. Not at the risk of sounding super pretentious, which I probably will anyway. You are ultimately putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
You're if you're really believing in what you're doing, you are putting all of it out there, and you're the lyrics that you're doing, the style of guitar that you're playing, the clothes that you wear when you're on stage,
Yeah.
the moves that you're already thinking about before you get on stage, all of that, like, it gets in your head, and it can be frightening. Of course it can be. And then now you have to do it in front of other people. Yeah, it can scare the bejesus out of you. And it's not even necessarily a matter of whether or not anybody's going to like you. Like, there could be nobody there, but you are still there. Like, you are still doing this, and it's not always easy. And I think when you reach the point where you can just kind of throw it away and be arrogant about it and be like, whatever I do is going to be cool, then you shouldn't be doing it.
I think there's something really vulnerable about, sitting around with your friends and just making shit up. It's play, right? It's just like when you're a kid and you're playing make believe with your buddies, or playing with your GI Joes, or whatever you did.
Yeah.
But you're sitting around and you're creating something out of nothing,
out of thin air,
out of pure thin air. And then you have to recreate it and perform it for other people. That's nerve-wracking. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
But when it goes over, it's the most exhilarating thing on earth. Can you think of a time, though, where it didn't go over and you did kind of feel like, oh, fuck, what did I just do?
Oh, yeah, it just happened a couple of weeks ago.
Come on.
Yeah, we yeah, our very first, and this is just me getting in my stupid brain. Our first performance for calling hours, our first actual performance was on a morning lifestyle TV show at a local television station in Harrisburg. You know those shows I'm talking about, where they're like, okay, so we're gonna come up with some new recipes for tapas, and then calling hours is gonna come out, and then they're gonna play a little song for us. Yeah, so that was our first actual performance on live television. I'm not ashamed to admit that about 3 minutes before we went on, they were like, "Okay, you guys about ready?" And I said, "Mm-hmm." And I speed walked to the men's room and violently regurgitated everything that I had eaten for breakfast.
Oh God!
And then came back as quickly as possible, and I was like, "All right, let's do this." And yeah, yeah, I didn't feel like I didn't feel like I sounded that good. Probably because the night before, the thing is, calling hours, we had never played, even though we recorded a record, we had never played a full song in the same room together at the same time until the night before that television appearance. I drove out from Scranton to Harrisburg, and we went into our guitar player Tom's basement, and that was like the first time we ever like really like played together as a band, like really played together. And I probably overdid it because I was a little too excited and a little too fired up. And so then the next morning we had to show up at the TV studio at 8:30 in the morning, which, is the perfect hour for fucking post-hardcore.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then we, and also I don't play an instrument, I just sing. So everybody else is setting up and doing important things, and I'm just standing there.
Oh man, nothing to do with your hands.
Nothing at all. And I'm just kind of wandering around and like, okay, this is cool, or is it cool? I don't know what I'm doing here. These guys are way better than me. I don't know what's going on. And then I went and threw up, and then we went out and we did the song. And so I was a little raspy. I could have hit those notes a little harder. So as a rollout, probably not the best. Probably not my favorite debut. But then again, how many hardcore people are up at 10 o'clock in the morning looking to hear some calling hours, looking to hear some music from a band they never heard of in the first place? So I guess it wasn't that bad.
Well,
and then I promptly went to sleep after that and slept for about 24 hours, and then went to the next show.
It didn't happen at a show. I think that's probably the prescient point here is, you weren't in front of, a room full of your peers and falling flat on your face. It was just a TV studio thing,
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, but just if we're talking about at least a recent memory, that just came into mind. Yeah, it's, it will. Well, now that it's on video, it will live on in infamy, and now you know now you know the backstory. While you can see the bags under my eyes and the sweat pouring off of my brow, and but I don't regret any of it. Get yourself out of your comfort zone. Go do things that are going to be weird and absurd. Go do it. You can't say no to that kind of stuff. You just can't.
I guess you're right. I mean, I've been embarrassing myself pretty much since I was 12 in front of people on at least a weekly basis up until about 3 years ago. So I get it. I understand.
Well, I'm glad you feel like you got to a place where you're not embarrassing yourself anymore. I have yet to achieve that, but good for you.
Well, I mean, alcohol is certainly a social lubricant, my friend. I mean, I was never. if you haven't gleaned this from the conversation yet, I've never been straight edge. It was never my thing. I was always an animal rights guy, but I was always a garbage head. I drank, I did drugs, I still smoke pot, so what? And you know what I mean? Like, I always had to do a little something in order to perform, because I know if I didn't, it would end badly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kid, I'm glad you're asleep. Dad is not a piece of shit, I swear. But, you know, I was always a fun guy. What can I say?
There's something to be said about that.
Sure.
I think as long as you show up when and where you're supposed to show up, I think that's isn't that what they used to say? Like, success. 90% of success is showing up. Well, kind of, but
yeah, having all of your faculties.
That's it. Yeah.
I mean, not very recently, but a few years ago, I was drinking and my band was playing, and then Harry started on stage pouring booze down my throat. And there was a photographer from a local newspaper in the audience, and my wife is standing there going, "Don't do what I think you're going to do." And I did it anyway, and I ran directly out into the crowd and into this poor girl who was the photographer, knocked her to the ground. I didn't mean to do it. I was just blind drunk. And Joey got a phone call from the newspaper. Your singer is an asshole. He knocked our photographer down on the ground. We're not going to write a piece about you guys. So maybe the moral of the story is don't let Harry know you're playing a show if you're going to.
But definitely let Joey Solomini know that you're playing a show, because he's the sweetest guy, and he will he'll you know. I mean, that guy's all hugs. That guy's great.
Oh, well, why do you think I've been playing in a band with him forever? I mean,
good point. Yeah. Joey
is definitely beauty personified. I wish I could be more like that, actually.
Yeah, I'm super jealous of his hair every time I see him.
I don't have any, so I'm jealous. I'm jealous of your hair. I'm jealous of everybody's hair.
Because we have it. I get it.
Yeah, you fuckers.
No, I just got my hair cut by Keith Barbuti at Loyalty Keith. A couple of weeks ago. Yeah, Keith rules, man.
I grew up with Keith. Well, I grew up with everybody in this area, but what am I talking about? It's a big incestuous party.
Yeah, I mean, I'm new to the party, so I'm trying to mingle a little bit.
You're already an honorary Scrantonian, if not.
I've been here 5 years. I mean, at what point do I get my badge of honor?
You're in. You're already in.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Pete.
You're already in. If no one's christened it yet, I am breaking the champagne off the bow right now. You are Popeye. You are a Scrantonian at this point.
Thanks, man.
Forget California. It's over. Just don't get Lyme disease while you're here, and you're good.
Doing my best. No promises, but I'm doing my best.
I do have to ask, though, how are you finding our fine little hillbilly city, as it were?
Oh, I love it. As I mentioned earlier, my wife is also from California. Mm. We love it. We love getting the Four Seasons. We've got this lovely house that we could never afford if we were in California. We're surrounded by. Someone was calling. Sorry. We're nestled up in the hills of this like village kind of area, and it's really woodsy, and there's birds and squirrels and raccoons and possums that are running around all the time. And the birds, man, like we get blue jays and cardinals and Orioles. All the major league teams are represented out here. It's really it's really spectacular, and we have all this. We've got a lot of room for the animals, and that's a priority for us. And And we're weather nerds, so we love it when it, like, you get real rainstorms here in California. If you get like a drizzle, everybody freaks out, and then there's like accidents all over the place. But out here, people know how to handle it, and you get like real like thunderstorms and lightning storms, and we just kind of stand there in our bathrobes with our martini glasses, looking out the window, thinking, well, good thing we don't have to go out there.
All thirst and howl and shit.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, so we dig it. I will say that my two least favorite things in the world are raking leaves and shoveling snow.
Mm-hmm.
But I do my best to find a way to get out of doing both of those things as much as possible. The snow melts pretty quickly. And then I try to look up articles about, like, if you leave the leaves on the grass, it's good for the grass.
Yeah.
Or so I've read. It insulates them. No, no, we're not gonna rake leaves today.
That only works if you don't have dogs.
Yes, and maybe that's why we don't have dogs.
Yeah, because they get fleas.
Yeah, but otherwise, no. All jokes aside, we dig it. It is definitely Los Angeles is very it's very transient, which is part of what makes it a great place to live. But as opposed to a place like here in Scranton, pretty much everybody is from here, and their parents and their grandparents and their great grandparents are from here, and people have more roots here, and it seems to be very much more community oriented than it would be in many other places, and we dig that. Like, they had, like, every borough has a fair,
Yeah,
and a fireworks show on the 4th of July. Like, it's just, and there's a fireworks show happening right now. I don't know if you can hear that. Somebody, or maybe that's just somebody with a shotgun.
that could be somebody with a shotgun.
It's probably that. Yeah, you're probably right. You're a little late for Memorial Day, bro. But otherwise, it's cool. Downtown Scranton's it's really charming. We like the architecture, and it's very walkable. There's a good selection of organic and vegan foods that we can find.
That's recent, I have to say. Being vegan in this area 15, 20 years ago was nigh impossible.
Hey, I could tell you it wasn't that much different in California either. Man, I could tell you, like, vegan cheese, like 15, 20 years ago was like eating wet, soggy cardboard. Like just starve yourself to death. You'd probably be more satisfied.
Yeah, I used to spend summers in San Francisco with my uncle, and I remember because he was vegan way back then. And it was, yeah, it was like back in the 80s. He came back from Vietnam and became a Buddhist. And well, yeah,
no kidding.
He's the impetus for all that I became, thankfully, because I had my wonderful late father, who was a Vietnam veteran as well, but went the other way, and he didn't get it. He made me go hunting, and I just like being in the woods with him, but I certainly didn't want to kill anything. But I had my uncle on the other hand, and I would take off with him, and he and my aunt would, they turned me on to culture. And the first time I heard the Clash, I went to see the Clash with opening for The Who with my uncle and my dad. Changed absolutely everything in my life. It was combat rock tour. I was very young. I was probably 9 years old, and I was a punk since then. But yeah, that's where I get animal rights from. That's the birth of it all, and what I was into. So what that was leading me into, though, was like, what was your first bite of that apple? What was it that kind of opened the door for you to kind of get into this stuff, as it were?
Mostly I have an older brother and an older sister who were cooler than me, and they had really cool friends. And so they would bring records home from their friends and put them on the family hi-fi, and I would just sort of peek my head out the door, and you want to be, you think your older brother and your older sister are cool, and you want to be cool like them. And specifically, I remember the Clash's first album and the Jam in the City and Oingo Boingo, Only a Lad, were records that my brother and sister brought home, and I had no concept of what was going on. I literally had no idea what was happening, but something just drew me in. Part of it, I will admit, had to do with I just wanted to try to be cool like my older brother and my older sister, but at the same time, something just spoke to me about it. I didn't understand any of the lyrics that were being sung, but I love the energy, and I love the rebelliousness of it. And I was only like 10 years old, but I was just digging it. It took a few years before I really kind of embraced trying to look like a punk, because you don't want to be one of those overnight guys who last day of school you're a deadhead, and then you come back freshman year the next year and you have a mohawk. Like, I didn't want to be one of those guys, so I tried to be gradual about it. But little by little, I got more and more into it, and that's kind of how I learned a lot about music. Just kind of studying it and nerding out on it, and eventually started to learn how to teach myself how to play guitar and teach myself how to sing. And I don't know if this is enough to. I don't know if this is a really interesting conversation, to be honest with you, because it's just like, I don't know. I have no answers. So you just did it. You followed something and you just kind of went for it.
Well, it is interesting because everyone kind of wants to know where it came from. You know what I mean? Like, where did it start? What's that kernel?
Yeah, I don't have one. I could tell you that there was not one specific pivotal moment that changed my life forever. That's never existed for me.
Well, I disagree, because if you're sticking your head out of a door, listening
to well, maybe that's it.
older siblings, like discovering these incredible records, which, I guess to someone who doesn't wrap their whole life up in music, maybe it wouldn't be interesting, but for anyone listening to this show, they're definitely going to like it, because obviously we all have a similar story, right? Like, I had a friend who made me a mixtape. I had this, I had that. I ended up at a concert that I had no business being at, but I had a hippie uncle and my dad who was just way into the Who, and that's how it all went down. But it's always from someone else. You know what I mean? You don't just you don't stumble on this on your own. No one does. Even if it's on a radio station, someone programmed that radio show, someone put that record on.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that. I guess I just have to kind of respectfully disagree with you, because there was not one specific pivotal moment that changed my life. It wasn't like I can honestly say I don't know how any of this happened. I literally don't know how I got to do any of this stuff. Like to this day, like I don't get it. I can assure you that I never sought out to be anybody of any kind of significance or importance to anyone. I'm greatly appreciative that there are people that found stuff that I did and that Farside did and other bands that I did mattered to them. But I promise you, I I was more concerned about other things. I was just doing stuff. So, it doesn't necessarily have to be about rounding a corner. It can also be about going through a gradual curve, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah. So this curve, because I still absolutely love Huey Lewis in the News. Like,
why wouldn't
absolutely love it. Why? Who wouldn't?
Sports is a great record.
Oh my God. Go back even further. They had great stuff before that. Like,
yeah.
Oh. Yeah. You just. Yeah. I can't. I don't think big. I never have. And I just kind of do what's happening there, and I try to stay committed to it as much as possible. But no, if you were to put me on the spot, like if you were to say, what's your favorite song? I would give you like 30.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Or what's your favorite movie? I can give you like 50, and they're all going to be the same because they're all going to be my favorite in some way or shape or form. And the same applies to what took me on my musical path. I couldn't tell you why. Like to this day, I often take a step back and ask myself, like, wait, what are you doing right now? Because I don't know what I'm doing. You just kind of do it. You do it because you love it. You do it because you feel a connection to it. You feel a certain passion to it in that particular moment. And then you just try to move forward with it. But then at the end of the day, this is the thing that I hope keeps me grounded, is that at the end of the day, I'm always thinking, okay, what do I need to pick up at the grocery store? What bills need to be paid? Do I have an appointment? Do you have an appointment? So, I guess it's not a matter of like consciously trying to keep it compartmentalized. It's just that's where my mind is. I barely think of myself as a musician. I just think of myself as a guy that has played in some bands.
But that's what sets this thing apart too. Like if I were to say, let's pick a name out of a hat, Axl Rose, because my wife loves Guns N' Roses. Axl Rose, that guy knows his importance, right?
Yeah.
He's on his own little ego trip and thinks everything he does is vastly important, and he's up his own ass. So yes, a majority of people will listen to his music, but they're not invested in him, right? It's just a matter of like, oh, I know that song from when I was a kid, so I like this. There's no real emotional investment from a subculture of human beings around that band, right? It's just hits. It's just the machine. Whereas Farside has the people who love Farside really fucking love Farside. Still have a 30-year-old hat in a bin.
Yeah.
That is not the color it was when they bought it. Probably
Yeah.
over 30. God, I don't even remember how old I am now. 40 something, 48, 47, somewhere in there. and you know what I mean? Like that's what rarefies it. That's what keeps it personal and keeps it honest. You know, so if you were to say, yeah, I know how important I was because I did this, that, and the other, then, you know, why would I like what you have to say or what you did? I wouldn't. You know what I mean? It'd be something else.
Right. Yeah. That's my attitude as well.
Yeah, that's when it becomes cult of personality shit. That's why people who suck vote for Trump, because they like that. You know, that's someone who's like like ultra self-aware, someone who's fully engaged in who they are and what they do. I don't like that guy. I know people who are like that in real life, and I can't stand them. I don't want that
me
out
as
of
well.
I wouldn't attach myself to someone who created music on that level. It just wouldn't resonate with me.
Well,
Unless
and then
it's Stones, then okay, I forgive it because it's fucking Stones. But outside of that,
well, yeah, once they can get out of their walkers, if they can just do whatever they can do.
I don't listen
As
to
if
them
the Rolling
past the
Stones
80s.
are going to hear this. Like, they're not like,
No.
Oi, yeah, just go Popeye. Fucking talking shit.
I fucking like Rochambeau.
Fuck, man. The fuck? We were just about to ask him to go on too. What happened? Fuck.
In an alternate universe, that's happening right now because you spoke it. Think about it. Quantum physics. There it is. You spoke that shit. It's happening.
Okay, if you say so.
Listen, to wrap this up.
Yeah, I think it's time to go because we're just spinning out of control right now.
We are, but I love it. This is when it gets good. But
all right, I will talk to you soon then.
All right, brother. Good to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you know that I really, really appreciate it.
I appreciate that you came on, believe me.
All right, have a good night.
Talk to you later.
Okay, bye.
There you have it, folks. My conversation with Popeye. We obviously had a blast together. We were getting pretty deep into our own vibe and whatnot, but on behalf of all of us, he's been Popeye of Calling Hours. I've been Peter. You've been beautiful. This has been the Book of Very, Very Bad Things podcast. Good night, everybody.